From EPAWA Weather Consulting, headquartered in Worth Whitehall, Pennsylvania, this is Weather Weeklies, an informative video of the ins and outs of weather that affect you most in the EPAWA coverage area. The thoughts and opinions expressed in this video are those of the forecaster alone and may not reflect those of the staff of EPAWA Weather Consulting LLC as a whole, nor its constituents. Now, without further ado, here is meteorologist Bobby Martrich with Weather Weeklies.
Good Sunday morning to another edition of Weather Weeklies for Sunday, January 7th. I apologize for not having the video last week, but I was just incredibly sick. One of those times where it's very rare I get that sick, but things are going around right now, and as you guys are all well aware, and I just couldn't get through a paragraph of. I tried. My best attempt was made to try to get the Weather Weeklies video last week, but I just couldn't without coughing hysterically. So that's past me now. Still got some lingering stuff going on yet, but I mean, it's able to be worked through. As you see below me, the radar. The radar has some leftover snow showers and some bursts of snow, actually, across mainly north central, northeast PA, even the Lehigh Valley, northern New Jersey. We're getting some snow showers rotating through this morning. This is with the inverted trough, and the storm is just about done overall. We just have this to go through this morning. Some pretty impressive snowfall totals in some areas with this thing, and we'll get to that here in today's video for a brief recap. But starting off, as we always do, with our long-range chart from Friday. I did have time to do this on Friday before the really hot, heavy stuff we do privately got going, so I had to get up really early to start doing this. But it looks like this is our general idea of the temperatures. We are going to head into a milder week this week. This was expected. This is not like, oh, here we go. I thought we were supposed to lock in the cold. I never said that. And this is going all the way back a while. When we were talking about pattern change, we were talking about the upper level pattern change, not the... We weren't talking about snow. We weren't talking about us locking in forever. It's an El Nino, so it's going to be doing this number, right? It's not going to be steady as she goes. You are going to have some colder periods, but you're going to have some milder periods mixed in at times too. This is one of those deals where you have snow, and then you expect snow that whatever you had fall and keeps accumulating on top of that and lasts through the end of spring. That's not one of those years, certainly. So we do have an above average stretch, especially most notably around our storm that comes in on Tuesday into Wednesday, and then after that we're still slightly above average through just before mid-month, and then we go back down to below average after that. But we might even have another relaxation period at the very end of the month here. It might be for a couple days where you get temperatures maybe near to slightly above average for a little bit, and then you go back in February, go back down to cold again. So that's the general idea of temperature pattern. We have a couple systems coming here. Of course, this first one listed is actually the one that just occurred, okay? So the second one is the Tuesday into Wednesday system. We'll cover that. There's another one right around the 13th, and there's another one that's our winter storm signal that we introduced this week, which is right around mid-month on either side of the 15th of January. So let's get into what average snowfall is. This is for January and February now, so we can look at what we have, what is typical. It does go to, these are our busiest couple months here. These are core months of winter where we get the most snow. And, obviously December started off with nothing. We were very warm in December. November, they really didn't produce anything. So we get into January, February, you're expecting snow to pick up a little bit, and we will, okay? And I think we're going to end up with, as we have here in the chart, we have slightly above average snowfall in the interior, meaning, as you get northwest of I-95, and then near to slightly below average in southeastern areas. Again, southeast of I-95, I don't think you're going to get a whole lot this month. Once you get into February, though, everyone is above average snowfall, so you'll make up for it, I think, in February for our southern areas. And there are still some opportunities here in January. You're going to have southeast of I-95. I'm not saying it's not going to occur. Especially with that winter storm signal, there might be something there for you too. And then beyond that, okay? So there's going to be opportunities. It's just I don't want to give you the idea that you're not going to get anything, but you might not quite make average. We'll see. We'll see how that plays out. So far, year to date, now I don't have... This is the updated numbers through yesterday's storm, and these are at these specific locations. So, like the Scranton-Wilkes-Barre area had 4.5 inches officially. Allentown had 5.3. You had nothing before that but a trace, so you're at 5.3. Harrisburg says 3.3, which I think is a little suspect. That's the airport measurement, the official airport measurement, but I'm looking at Harrisburg and seeing all the way around there, like Hershey and all across southern Dauphin County seeing amounts more like 5. So I don't know where they're getting 3.3, but that's what the official, maybe that's the compacted amount, I don't know. But that's what they came up with for an official total. Newark had 0.4, and then nothing in, if you had another trace in Philadelphia, but that was it. Atlantic City, nothing yesterday, so you remain at the trace year to date, so you haven't had anything yet. And this is where you should be year to date on the right column. So we are still behind, even with that snow, year to date. Scranton, Wilkes-Barre, you're about 6 inches behind normal. Allentown, you're getting closer. Allentown's now a little about 1.5 inches below normal. All right, and you got about half of what you normally get to this point of the year in Harrisburg. So we're behind, but it's not as ridiculous. You can get one storm to really, really help you along and get you back closer to average. We'll probably get there eventually. It's just going to be, nickel and dime, I guess, until you get there, right? So here's yesterday's system, just to give you an idea of how we had it. Now, this is pretty. What's pretty interesting about this is we were focused really heavy on this part down here where you have the changeover line and, in our southeastern areas. So that was where our area of focus was, and we did very well in those areas. What ended up busting on this map, and you always have busts on snowfall maps. You can't get every single place exactly spot on with a map. But these areas up here, right in here, where we had 6 to 9, a lot of these areas were in the 3 to 6 range. Okay, so you had a little bit under there, but these areas in between and the fringe areas were almost spot on. So it was pretty good. We actually liked that we really concentrate on that area, on the battle zone areas, and it worked out pretty well. You get up here, and yes, this is focusing on higher elevation, those in the dark blues, and I'll tell you what, there's some big differences. Like I said, Wilkes-Barre had officially 4.5, but if you go up in the mountains in Luzerne County, in northern Luzerne County, and same thing with Lackawanna, you get up in the mountains and they had some 10, 12 inch reports up there. So same thing up here in Sussex County, New Jersey, Pike County, Wayne County. You had some pretty higher elevations did pretty well up here. So we had, say, got in the 9 to 12 inch range up there. So the whole general theme of this map worked out well. Again, you didn't quite make the minimums out here. We had 6 to 9 and ended up being more like 3 to 6. Not everywhere's gonna work out exactly, but overall, I think we did well with this, and we're on to the next one. We have some, of course, swinging through this morning up in these areas that are going to add to some of those totals that up in these areas specifically. But I just had a burst come through here in the northern Lehigh Valley, gave us another quick half inch. I mean, it was a quick burst, but it did something. So here is the El Nino watch. Here we're looking at this each week, and again, pretty much unchanged in these regions. We've peaked in what El Nino is right now, and we're actually we're going to start to do the slow decline now. Okay, we're looking at Nino 1 and 2 in our eastern regions. Took a big hit this week and went down 8.8 degrees Celsius. So it's really your Nino 3.4 and Nino 3 regions that are still hanging on to the warmer anomalies, and a little bit Nino 4, but also we're not east-based right now. So we moved away from the east-based. It's still strong, but it's not east-based anymore, which is a big thing for winter, which means winter can actually occur. If you had it east-based, it would be the kiss of death, right? We talk about that many times in many of these Weather Weeklies videos. And the idea here is this is where we are right now. We're going to have a steady decline here, just slow and steady, but a slow and steady decline of El Nino over the next couple months. You might get the moderate by the time we get to a moderate El Nino by the time we get to March, but I mean, by then you're almost done with winter, right? And you're dealing with sun angle, and all that other stuff. So one of the big things that have changed this week, and we were talking about the last time, it was 2 weeks ago we were talking about this, because I didn't have a video last week, but we had sudden stratospheric warming projected at that time. Well, that didn't actually come to fruition, but it was weak enough where you don't have a total zonal wind reversal at the poles, but if you have a sudden stratospheric warming event, which is if you have a colder stratosphere, meaning the polar regions have that cold vortex locked in above the Arctic Circle, then it keeps a generally mild pattern like we've seen in December. I mean, a very mild pattern with a locked-in polar vortex over the poles. Now, this is in the stratosphere. It's not the troposphere where we live. This is up a level above that. A less cold stratosphere allows for stretching, splits, all that kind of stuff that gets the cold air away from the polar regions and and allows it to escape down into the mid-latitudes where we live. So you get a cold shot, and that could lead, of course, to snowier conditions. Well, here's what we have coming in a couple days. Cooler over the poles, but then all of a sudden you have this warming right across the middle that splits the vortex into two. This is going to happen this week. This is going to happen on fully by next Tuesday. Okay, next Tuesday or Wednesday. But it was cooler over the polar regions. You had a warming episode. This is not and this turned into a split even without a full zonal wind reversal that was projected. As a matter of fact, here's that failed attempt right here. It came down a little bit, but it's enough because it's a weak negative QBO. So it is more susceptible to impacts like that where the stratosphere warms and pushes that cold air away from the polar regions. It is suggesting that it's going to go up a little bit here. We get to about mid-month or just beyond that, it's going to take another attempt at another zonal wind reversal. The only difference between having this, let me get out of here. The only difference between having this like this and what could come if you have a zonal wind reversal is that this is more temporary. So meaning it doesn't last that long, the effects of it, maybe like a week or so. If you have a complete zonal wind reversal, that can last for a while, 30 days, 30 to 40 days even, okay, if you have a zonal wind reversal. So if it does do that, which is not presently suggested to do, but is expected to take a big hit here, we can extend this a little bit longer. The colder pattern sticks around a little bit longer. And I will tell you that if you look at the Mad-Angeline oscillation right now, it's right now in a colder phase, but it's going to be heading in phase 3 in January. That is a colder phase. You get into phase 4, 5, 6, those are warmer phases. Look where it's going, right into there. No matter which model you look at, different amplitudes, of course. The GFS is a little higher amplitude than the Euro extended, but I will say that if you have any of this, the important thing about the stratospheric warming is this and this especially. When you see something like this, I don't care what MJO phase it is in. It could be in these quartz phases all at once. If you have this going on, this trumps the MJO, okay? Sudden stratospheric warming events or any kind of warming events over the poles that result in a look like this is going to trump the MJO no matter what cycle it's in. It doesn't matter, okay? Doesn't matter. So if we can have this the stratosphere help during this period, I just moved this over here by accident, then you'll be colder in that period. And that's what the models are indicating is going to happen because of that. Look at we have for this upcoming week. There's that storm with warmth, and then you have the warmth that is there just before the middle of the month, but then it just gets colder as a result of blocking that is set up by this stratospheric warming. That's the other thing. Look at the blocking jumping into Greenland. That forces cold air underneath the block, and we have that block going into the entire third week of the month of January. Okay, so that's going to be between the, say, 14th and 21st, right? That third week. That's when we have that colder. It's not going to last forever because that stratospheric warming is not permanent. There's no zonal wind reversal. So it's just going to be a weak shot. I do think you have the opportunity to moderate here. You see the very end here? Watch the very end. See that little bit of ridging that starts trying to come in here? It's not much, but it's a little bit once you get past the 21st. So I think if you look at our long-range chart, we have this period of a relaxation right toward the end of the month during that last week right there. We have it near average right now. We'll continue to monitor that period. But if you had something, it would be transient. We're going right back to slightly below average after that. Okay, so it's not going to be long-lasting. And but there is an indication that once this block goes away, all right, so it's going to be temporary. That's set up by the stratospheric changes. That you go back to the polar vortex getting up over the Greenland blocking regions again. So that will allow some ridging to come back in here temporarily during the week of the fourth week of the month of January. Okay, that's the thinking right now. Now, as far as the January 9th and 10th storm, this is a rainstorm. It's a big rainstorm. We just had a lot of snow in some areas yesterday, so we're going to have a big problem here with this storm. Big problem. And we're going to cover this in the daily forecast videos with a little bit more detail. But right now we're looking at 1.5 to 2.5 inches of rain on top of snowmelt for those that you still have it. Saturated ground because we just had 3 big storms in December. Most recently, it was December 27th to 28th. So we had a lot of rain there. And then you had this system yesterday. Some of you had rain from that. Others had a mix to rain or whatever. And then, a lot of other areas, northern areas, have snow on the ground that's going to be melting at the same time this inch to inch and a half is coming in. To exacerbate the situation a little bit, we have windy conditions, most notably Tuesday evening. into the overnight, and then again breezy during the day on Wednesday. So we could have some pretty high wind gusts that could lead to some power outages with this storm. So this is not a joke. It's going to be a high impact system, and we're going to cover that extensively in the daily forecast videos beginning with Monday morning. Okay, we talked about this a little bit last week too, but that is going to be rain. We're not dealing with snow with that. There might be a little bit of onset mixing here in the far north central PA, northeast PA areas nearest the Pennsylvania-New York border. It just briefly goes over to rain during the day. Elsewhere, it's just going to be rain, showers evolving into steadier and heavier periods of rain as we head toward evening, and that will continue during the evening. Probably a squall line coming through with this as the flow gets more meridionally stacked here, so more like a south to north flow. Okay. Now, there's another system behind this. Is in the 12th, 13th time frame we have listed. We have it as rain and snow on the outlook on Friday. I'm not convinced this is going to be a rainstorm. I know the European model went to that last night. GFS is kind of halfway in between. Here's the Canadian model showing the same thing. There's that storm, right? But this could be something similar to what we had yesterday. A different evolution, of course, because this is doing a Miller B scenario where it's transferring energy to an offshore low. But if that baroclinic boundary is a little bit further southeast, then the redevelopment low might draw in some cold air and turn this into a more snowy event again. Something in similar results of what we just had yesterday. Okay, so that's what it's looking like it could be, but it also could be something that cuts a little bit more and ends up being a little bit warmer with rain. So we'll continue to watch that period. That's why we have rain or snow mix, and it's not in a long range outlook, and we didn't put a signal for that one, but there is a long range signal right around the middle of the month. There's what the GFS has for it. Now, don't take this with a grain of salt, because this is hour 228, right? But we're looking at ensembles for this period, which is showing a storm signal consistently in this period. This is the storm signal period through the middle of the month, and we got to watch that period pretty closely. And it continues to show. Actually, to put this wide enough, it's actually right here. That's the storm signal period that we're looking at. And you can see there's a step up here, and this is the latest run on the bottom. Definitely a step up there in snowfall. So we got to watch that period specifically. And the reason why that's a signal is because this is when the NAO is relaxing. The NAO builds in, gets a cold underneath, but when it relaxes is typically when you get a storm signal right there. There it is. You're going to get a storm signal as the NEO is rising toward neutral. That happens a lot on the East Coast. So that's why it's a storm signal. That and the ensembles are on it. So we're going to watch that period very carefully. I don't want to go too long-winded today because we have some client work to do, post-storm stuff and things like that. So I want to get on that. And we're actually jumping ahead to Tuesday and preparing for that with some of our private clients, bigger clients like energy clients, where they're worried about the wind, and very rightfully so, for that Tuesday into Wednesday system. So we're going to be getting on that. But so I'll just summarize here. We are turning milder this week with a high-impact system expected Tuesday into Wednesday morning. A cold transition will occur just before mid-month, and then a blocking pattern is going to set up over Greenland. It's going to cause that cold to slip underneath that block, and then that'll keep us cold for the entirety of week 3 of January. And then a winter storm signal period is highlighted right around the middle of the month, which will be monitored, but also just prior to that, which that storm I talked about. Again, I'm not convinced that January 12th, 13th system is entirely rain. It could be a combination of things. Could be more snowy. I mean, we'll just have to watch it. We'll see how that works out. It's going to depend on where that boundary sets up. But we have a lot to do here over the next couple of weeks. Certainly, it's going to keep us busy. And with that, I will leave you until next time. I am EPAWA meteorologist Bobby Martrich, and that is this edition of Weather Weeklies for Sunday, January 7th. Take care.